Hi everyone, I am Shrisi Ayer, and this is the Wonky Perspectives Podcast. Thank you for listening. Hola, hello, and namaste. This episode is an introduction to the Wonky Perspectives Podcast, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about why I decided to create this show and why you should listen to the show. Now, before I start, to subscribe, please go to the website wonkyperspectives.com/podcast. That's wonky with a WONKY, and you will find the shows, the show notes, and links. Now, I'm a writer myself, and due to the recent past events in the world in 2019, I felt that there was a need to do better. Period. You don't need me to explain why, and you probably know why already, so let's just leave it at that. This is a podcast mainly for the publishing industry and for writers who would like a resource to learn about other people's lives to better our writing. It will also be useful for students of life and psychology who can benefit from learning about other perspectives. So, to begin, I would like to share some statistics with you. Woohoo! Numbers, because you can't argue with that. Now, from a purely population perspective, 96% of the world is not the United States. As of 2019, in August, there were 7.7 billion people. China and India alone have 18% of the population each. Now that means China has 18 and India has 18%. And where does the United States stand? Just a mere 4.2%. And no matter how you chop up the numbers, whether it is by literacy rate, number of readers, number of listeners, it doesn't matter. United States is one country in the world. Now, it might feel like these numbers make no sense, and that is because the United States has always had a strong cultural dominion, especially in the fields of popular movies and music. The country has produced many popular and pervasive Hollywood movies and books. However, the internet and global media are exploding and bringing the world together. Demographics for book readership and audiobook listeners are rapidly changing day by day. In the internet age and with the dominance of social media, our platform is no longer our backyard. It is the entire world. Books, music, television, streaming services like Netflix and Amazon are for all types of people, not just you, not just your neighbor, but everyone. It is no longer okay to revel in ignorance or even apathy about world issues. And how have we dealt with this so far? Over the generations, typically, if we couldn't leave the four walls of our house and we wanted to learn about others and the world, it was through books. It would be through researching in libraries, through watching television or reading articles. And the previous methods and modes have worked very well. But today, well, the current generation is fantastic at figuring out produced shows versus reality. They have grown up with social media, with quote-unquote reality shows, and with Instagram influencers. And when these produced shows only portray one perspective, they come across as hollow. Their viewpoints leave a lot to be desired, especially if that team of writers themselves aren't diverse or culturally aware. Even worse is when the shows include a quote-unquote diverse character, but then those people are skewed to fit the mold of sanitized shows that television allows. This reinforces prejudices and may even inculcate new ones. And when you are the person reading these books or watching or listening to these shows, and if the writers portray a person incorrectly, or if the images or scenes are deeply flawed, you may end up being upset. And that is quite understandable because they could be describing your child, your partner, your best friend, or even yourself. Sound familiar? If it does sound familiar, it is because we as consumers, and I'm not just talking about Gen Z here, but all of us are getting good at recognizing when something is heavily produced, faked, or plain BS. Behind the scenes of books, television, songs, blog posts, blah, 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 are writers. And these writers have their own lives, their own sensibilities and morals. And when those writers try to do their best, what do? They reach out to previously written books for research. Now you might be thinking, sounds about right. What else are they supposed to do? Obviously. Let's delve into this a little bit more, shall we? Historically, books that have been preserved, and note I didn't say written, but preserved, are already influenced by the winners. As they say, history is written by the winners. And this is because through various wars and land occupations, many books that have detailed the many cultures, their history, scientific discoveries, and prominence have been burnt. And these have been replaced by other books. Those written by the Western world, by white males typically, traveling to other countries in a scouting expedition to justify taking over these lands. Their lenses were obviously flawed. They looked upon the world and did not simply observe as is. How could they? They were in that country, in the so-called new and uncivilized land, in a quest to rationalize it being a resourceful land, but under the wrong hands. These writers obviously intermixed their feelings, emotions, and bias in their writing to explain a rationale to allow for these wars to occur. Unfortunately, these propagated stereotypes and biases have been held on through generations. This has improved a little bit. Just a little, because wars continue to occur, new enemies are produced, new targets are made, and old stereotypes mixed with new ones persist. And when writers continue to use books written by the Western world as a basis for understanding a non-Western culture, it only shows one perspective, the stranger's perspective, not those who live and breathe that culture. And this is the biggest problem. Viewing a culture from an outsider's lens, the words that are produced through this medium remain shallow and sting the actual living and breathing people of that culture. Good writing is when we are able to create beautiful fiction through exciting lives in fantastical lands, exploring raw and deep primal emotions, but emotions that are universal and common, and embroidered with different life perspectives. To be true to those characters, we as writers must try to embrace what it feels like to be those characters, and to not let our own burdens unduly influence our perceptions and empathy. But unfortunately, we are human and flawed. As writers, we are still beholden to our upbringing and viewpoints. We find it difficult to overcome our own prejudices, stereotypes, or biases. And not because we don't try, but it's because we don't even know what unknown biases we have. We try to be inclusive. Hey, we want to be inclusive. But sometimes we have no clue where to begin. Sometimes we are simply afraid of doing a shoddy job. In a step towards better understanding of people with varied lives from different cultures, in the Wonky Perspectives Podcast, I'm trying to showcase different points of views, different people, their lives and histories, backstories, and better our writing. I will feature people with different professions, people who you might not come across your daily life, people with disabilities, without disabilities, people forming new cultures, people from ancient cultures, people from all around the world. And the best part? It won't be through my words or my interpretations or filters. It'll be in their own voices and the way they feel best represents them. I will also feature writers and their techniques for inclusion and attitudes towards diversity. And to understand prejudices and biases, I will be discussing how humans and every single person is biased, including me, and that can change, one step at a time. For in this world, we can all learn a little and love a little more. So, will you learn with me? Thank you for listening till the end of this episode. To learn more or subscribe, please visit wonkyperspectives.com/podcast or search on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much and have a fantastic day.